All right, today we're diving into one of the great intellectual heavyweight fights of the 20th century. In one corner, you have structuralism, and in the other, post-structuralism. This is the battle for how we make sense of, well, pretty much everything. I mean, it all boils down to this one huge question, right? You look out at the world, it's messy, it's complicated, it's kind of chaotic. So how do we possibly make any sense of it at all? And in the last century, two really powerful and totally opposite ideas stepped into the ring to try and answer that. And trust me, they completely changed the game for how we think about language, culture, and even reality itself. First up, let's talk about structuralism. The best way to think about structuralists is like they're cultural code breakers. They're convinced there's a hidden set of rules, like a universal grammar, that's secretly running the show behind everything we do. So here's the main idea. Nothing, and I mean nothing, has meaning all by itself. If you want to understand any little piece of human culture, a word, a myth, a fashion trend, you absolutely have to see how it fits into the bigger picture, the whole system. It's all about the network. To put it another way, a structuralist doesn't really care about a single brick. They are obsessed with the blueprint for the entire building. They truly believe there's this deep underlying grammar that organizes all of human culture, and they see it as their job to find it. And the whole thing really kicks off with a linguist named Ferdinand de Saussure. He said that any sign, like a simple word, is actually made of two parts. You've got the signifier, that's the sound or the letters, like T-R-E-E, and then you've got the signified, which is the actual concept, the picture of a tree in your head. But here's the part that blew everyone's minds. Saussure said the connection between these two things is completely arbitrary. Think about it. There's nothing tree-like about the word tree. We've just all sort of agreed that that sound represents that concept. Meaning isn't some fact of nature, it's a social agreement. It's a deal we all made. So structuralists are basically on the hunt for these deep, organizing structures. They see culture as being built on these simple pairs, good versus evil, light versus dark, nature versus culture. For instance, if a structuralist was looking at a fairy tale, they wouldn't care about how the princess feels. Nope. They'd be mapping out the hidden structure. Good versus evil, civilization versus the wild, rags versus riches. And in this world, the individual, you're not really in the driver's seat. Our behavior is shaped by these giant, invisible systems we're all swimming in. But you know how it goes. Just when this neat, tidy, systematic view was getting popular, it was time for a rebellion. Enter post-structuralism, the intellectual rule breaker that showed up to question everything structuralism thought was sacred. It's kind of like this. If structuralism was about finding the one stable blueprint for all of culture, post-structuralism came along to show that actually the blueprint is constantly changing. It's full of scribbles and contradictions, and maybe it was never really there in the first place. This whole vibe was perfectly captured in this famous essay by Roland Barthes called The Death of the Author. Barthes basically argued that once a writer puts their work out into the world, their original intention doesn't matter anymore. The power to create meaning suddenly shifts from the writer to you, the reader. And that, right there, is the absolute heart of post-structuralism. It completely rejects the search for stable, universal rules. Instead, it says meaning is always shifting. It's slippery, it's unstable, and it's totally influenced by who's doing the interpreting and what the power dynamics are in that situation. Thinkers like Jean-François Lyotard went after what they called grand narratives. Those big, sweeping theories like Marxism or even structuralism itself that claim to have the one magic key that unlocks all of history and culture. Post-structuralism is just deeply suspicious of any theory that stands up and says, yep, I've got the one true answer for everything. So let's put these two heavyweights right next to each other in the ring, because when you see them side by side, that's when their big disagreements really, really pop. I mean, this table just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? For the structuralist, meaning is stable, you find it inside the system. For the post-structuralist, it's totally unstable. It's created every time someone interprets it. For one side, truth with a capital T is universal. For the other, truth is relative, and it's always tangled up with power. We're talking about a fundamental clash of worldviews here. Okay, let's dig into that idea that truth is shaped by power. To do that, we have to talk about a key post-structuralist thinker, Michel Foucault. He argued that power and knowledge aren't two separate things at all. In fact, he said they create each other. Foucault used this amazing metaphor of a prison called the panopticon to explain it. So imagine this prison design where a single guard in a central tower can see every single prisoner, but the prisoners can't see the guard because they never know when they're being watched. What do? They start policing their own behavior all the time. For Foucault, that's how modern power works, not with brute force, but through constant surveillance and making us discipline ourselves. And if you thought that was a trip, well, buckle up, because let's talk about Jean Baudrillard. He took things a step further and argued that we don't even live in reality anymore. We live in a world of simulations, of copies of things that don't even have an original to begin with. He laid out these 4 stages. So first, an image reflects reality, like a map of a real territory. Then the image starts to distort that reality. After that, it starts to hide the fact that there's no reality behind it at all. And finally, the image becomes completely disconnected from anything real, creating what he called hyperreality, a world where the simulation is actually more real than the real thing. You know, think reality TV or perfectly curated social media profiles. Okay. I know this all might be sounding super abstract, maybe a little academic. You might be thinking, why does this intellectual food fight from 50 years ago matter to me today? Well, here's why. Because this tension, this tug of war between these 2 ways of thinking, is literally everywhere. It shapes how you understand the news, how you experience art, how you think about politics, and even how you see your own identity. Just think about it for a second. When you read a news article, are you getting the cold, hard, objective facts? Or are you reading a story that's been constructed from a very specific point of view? When you watch a movie, are you on a quest to uncover the one correct meaning the director intended? Or is your own interpretation, your own experience, what actually gives the film its meaning and power? Where you land on those questions puts you right in the middle of this debate. And that's really the legacy of this whole conflict. It's this constant push and pull between our human desire to find a stable underlying order to things and our equally human impulse to question that order, to poke holes in it, and to take it apart. That tension is right at the heart of what it means to think in the modern world. So, I'll leave you with this final question to chew on. The next time you read a book, or watch a movie, or even just listen to a song, ask yourself this: am I a detective here to discover a meaning that already exists? Or am I a co-creator, actively helping to make it meaningful myself?